Silence can become the loudest proof that a person has been fighting battles no one else could see. Why do some people seem to carry pain wherever they go, no matter how hard they try to live with kindness? Why do they give love freely, offer comfort without hesitation, and still find themselves facing betrayal, rejection, loneliness, or emotional exhaustion over and over again? If these questions have followed you for years, there may be a reason that reaches much deeper than simple bad luck. Many people, known as empaths, spend a large part of their lives believing they are somehow too sensitive for this world. They wonder why ordinary conflicts affect them for weeks while others move on in a day. They question why they can walk into a room and immediately sense tension that no one has spoken about. They struggle to understand why they absorb the emotions of others, as if those feelings belong to them. Because of this, they often grow up feeling different, misunderstood, or even broken. Friends may tell them they care too much. Family members may encourage them to stop taking everything so personally. Over time, these words create a quiet belief that their deepest strength is actually their greatest weakness. But what if that belief has been wrong from the very beginning? What if the pain that seems to follow empaths is not random at all? What if every disappointment, every heartbreak, every lonely season, and every difficult lesson is slowly preparing them for a purpose they cannot yet see? That idea may sound surprising, yet when we look closely at the emotional journeys of highly empathetic people, a remarkable pattern begins to appear. Again and again, they seem to walk through experiences that test their hearts in ways many others never fully understand. It is almost as though life keeps placing them in situations that force them to grow stronger emotionally, before revealing why they were different in the first place. This does not mean suffering is magical, or that pain should ever be welcomed. Pain is real. Emotional wounds are real. The tears people cry in silence are real. But sometimes the hardest chapters leave behind lessons that comfort never could. The people who have endured deep emotional struggles often develop a level of compassion, wisdom, and understanding that cannot be learned from books alone. They begin to recognize hidden emotions in others. They notice quiet cries for help that everyone else overlooks. They become the person someone desperately needed during their darkest moment, because they remember what it felt like to stand there themselves. Yet before reaching that point, many empaths must survive years of confusion. They attract relationships that leave them drained. They forgive people who continue hurting them. They believe they can heal everyone except themselves. They mistake endless sacrifice for unconditional love. They ignore their own emotional needs because caring for others feels more natural than caring for themselves. Little by little, this creates an exhausting cycle that seems impossible to escape. Many eventually ask themselves one painful question: why does life keep teaching the same lesson again and again? The answer is far more powerful than most people expect, and it may completely change the way you understand your own experiences. Throughout history, psychologists have studied empathy as one of the most important qualities that allows humans to connect with one another. Modern research continues to show that highly empathetic people often process emotional experiences more deeply than others. They are more sensitive to facial expressions, tone of voice, and emotional signals that many people barely notice. This heightened awareness can become both a remarkable gift and a heavy burden. It allows them to offer incredible kindness, but it also leaves them vulnerable to emotional overload, manipulation, and burnout if they never learn where compassion should end and healthy boundaries should begin. That balance rarely appears naturally. Instead, it is usually discovered through painful experience. This is one of the least discussed parts of the empath journey. Many people celebrate kindness but rarely speak about the hidden cost of carrying everyone else's emotions. They admire compassion without understanding the emotional weight that often comes with it. As a result, countless empaths spend years believing they are failing when, in reality, they are simply learning lessons that require time, patience, and resilience. Some of those lessons arrive through broken trust. Others arrive through loneliness, unexpected endings, or seasons when nothing seems to make sense. Looking back later, many realize those difficult years quietly transform them into people capable of bringing hope, wisdom, and healing to others in ways they never thought possible. That transformation is not instant. It unfolds one difficult step at a time, often hidden beneath moments that feel unfair or impossible to understand while they are happening. In this video, we are going to uncover why so many empaths seem to walk through emotional fire before discovering who they were truly meant to become. We will explore why suffering appears so often in their lives, why they repeatedly attract certain kinds of people, why learning to protect their own peace becomes one of their greatest challenges, and how their deepest wounds often become the very source of their greatest strength. We will also reveal several overlooked truths that many people never hear about empathy, including patterns that quietly shape the lives of highly sensitive individuals without them even realizing it. By the end of this journey, you may begin to see your own struggles from an entirely different perspective. The chapters that once felt meaningless may start to fit together like pieces of a much larger story. Some answers may surprise you, while others may finally give words to feelings you have carried for years. That is why watching until the very end is so important, because the final lesson connects everything we discuss and explains why so many empaths only discover their true purpose after surviving the very experiences that nearly convince them to give up. Welcome to our channel, where we explore the hidden truths of human nature, empathy, emotional growth, and the deeper lessons behind life's most difficult experiences. If these topics speak to you and you want more thoughtful videos that challenge the way you see yourself in the world, make sure to subscribe and join our growing community. Now, let's begin uncovering why so many empaths must first walk through hell before they finally discover the purpose that has been waiting for them all along. For an empath, life rarely feels ordinary because emotions are never just observed from a distance. They are experienced as if they belong to the empath personally. While most people can leave a stressful conversation behind and move on with the rest of their day, an empath often carries that emotional weight long after everyone else has forgotten it. A single harsh comment can replay in their mind for days. The sadness of a close friend can quietly become their own sadness, without them even realizing it. Walking into a room filled with tension can immediately change their mood, even if nobody has spoken a single word. This is not because they are weak or overly dramatic. It is because their minds naturally notice emotional signals that many people ignore. Tiny changes in someone's voice, a forced smile, nervous body language, or silent disappointment are often picked up almost instantly. Their brains are constantly collecting emotional information, making it difficult to separate their own feelings from the feelings of those around them. That is why many empaths become emotionally exhausted without understanding why. They spend so much time carrying invisible emotional weight that they forget what it feels like to be completely at peace. This sensitivity affects every part of life. A disagreement that others see as small may feel deeply personal. Rejection that another person quickly forgets may stay in an empath's heart for months. Disappointment often reaches beyond the event itself because empaths naturally search for meaning behind everything that happens. They replay conversations, wondering what they could have done differently. They analyze every word, every expression, and every moment, hoping to understand why someone acted the way they did. Their emotional world becomes filled with questions that rarely have simple answers. Even positive emotions are experienced more intensely. Joy can feel overwhelming. Love can feel limitless. Gratitude can bring tears without warning. This deep emotional range allows empaths to experience beautiful moments with incredible richness, but it also means painful moments leave much deeper marks. Life becomes a series of emotional highs and lows that often seem far stronger than those experienced by the people around them. Because others cannot always see this invisible struggle, empaths are frequently misunderstood. They may hear phrases like, "You're too sensitive," "You're overthinking," or "You need to toughen up." Although these words are often spoken without bad intentions, they slowly convince many empaths that something is wrong with them. Instead of learning to understand their sensitivity, they begin trying to hide it. They pretend not to care when they actually care deeply. They force smiles while carrying heavy emotional burdens inside. They apologize for crying. They feel embarrassed for caring too much. Little by little, they build emotional walls, not because they stop feeling, but because they fear being judged for feeling so deeply. For many empaths, This journey begins very early in life. Childhood is often where the first signs appear, even if nobody recognizes them at the time. Some children become anxious whenever adults argue, even if the argument has nothing to do with them. Others instinctively comfort classmates who seem lonely, without understanding why they feel drawn to them. Some children cry easily after seeing another person in pain, while others become overwhelmed in loud or emotionally tense environments. These children are often described as shy, quiet, emotional, or overly sensitive. Very few people stop to ask whether that sensitivity might actually be a unique way of experiencing the world. Instead, many young empaths spend years trying to become less emotional because they believe that is what everyone expects. They learn to ignore their instincts. They doubt their own feelings. They question their perceptions. This confusion becomes even greater during adolescence, when emotions naturally become more intense for everyone. An empath may find themselves carrying not only their own struggles, but also the emotional burdens of friends, classmates, and family members. They become the listener everyone turns to, the peacemaker during conflict, and the quiet supporter who rarely asks for help in return. On the outside, they appear strong and dependable. Inside, they are slowly becoming emotionally overwhelmed. They often do not realize that constantly absorbing other people's emotions without releasing them creates exhaustion that sleep alone cannot fix. Emotional fatigue builds quietly over time until they begin feeling drained, for reasons they cannot explain. Many wonder why life feels heavier for them than it does for others. They compare themselves to people who seem unaffected by criticism or conflict, and assume they must simply be weaker. The truth is far different. Their emotional system is processing far more information than they realize. Every disappointment, every uncomfortable conversation, every hidden emotion they sense in another person adds another layer to the emotional load they already carry. This is why ordinary life can sometimes feel extraordinary in its intensity. A crowded workplace, a difficult family gathering, or even watching someone else struggle can leave an empath emotionally depleted by the end of the day. Yet this same sensitivity also plants the seeds for extraordinary compassion. Because they know what emotional pain feels like, they naturally become gentle with people who are hurting. Because they have experienced loneliness, they notice those who feel left out. Because they understand silent suffering, they often recognize pain before anyone else does. The very sensitivity that once felt like a burden slowly begins shaping the qualities that make them deeply trustworthy and compassionate. Still, these gifts do not erase the hardships. In fact, they often invite even greater challenges, because people who constantly give emotional support sometimes attract those who are eager to take it. Before an empath understands the importance of protecting their own emotional well-being, life has a way of placing them in situations that slowly reveal difficult but necessary truths. But emotional sensitivity is only the beginning of the journey. Repeated hardship begins teaching lessons that comfort never could. Every disappointment leaves behind more than sadness. It leaves behind awareness. Every betrayal reveals something about trust. Every lonely season reveals something about inner strength. Every broken expectation quietly changes the way an empath sees both themselves and the world around them. While painful experiences can make some people emotionally shut down, they often push empaths toward deeper understanding instead. They begin asking questions that others never stop to consider. Why do people hurt those who love them? Why do some hide behind anger while carrying fear inside? Why do kindness and cruelty sometimes exist within the same person? These questions slowly develop emotional wisdom, because empaths refuse to accept simple answers. They look beneath behavior to understand the emotions driving it. They recognize that many people who cause pain are carrying pain themselves. This understanding does not excuse harmful behavior, but it allows empaths to see human struggles with remarkable depth. Betrayal becomes one of their greatest teachers, because it forces them to distinguish between words and actions. Loneliness teaches them how to become comfortable with themselves, instead of depending entirely on others for acceptance. Grief teaches them that healing cannot be rushed. Disappointment teaches them that expectations sometimes create suffering long before reality does. None of these lessons arrive quickly. Growth rarely happens in one dramatic moment. It unfolds quietly through countless small experiences that slowly reshape the heart. One day, an empath notices they recover from criticism a little faster than before. Another day, they realize they no longer chase people who clearly do not value them. Months or years later, they look back and discover they are no longer the same person who once believed everyone deserved unlimited chances. The transformation is gradual, almost invisible while it is happening. Every difficult experience adds another layer of emotional maturity until they begin seeing patterns that once remained hidden. They recognize manipulation more quickly. They sense dishonesty sooner. They notice when kindness is genuine and when it is simply being used to gain something in return. These insights are rarely taught through advice alone. They are earned through experience, often at a painful cost. Yet the people who should protect them often become part of the lesson. Many empaths naturally attract emotionally unhealthy people because their kindness feels safe to those who are emotionally lost. A compassionate heart often becomes a place where wounded people seek comfort. At first, this seems like a beautiful quality. Empaths enjoy helping others. They listen without judgment. They forgive easily. They believe everyone deserves understanding. Unfortunately, not everyone approaches that kindness with good intentions. Some people are looking for support, while others are looking for someone who will carry responsibilities they refuse to face themselves. Because empaths dislike conflict, they often ignore early warning signs. They excuse repeated disrespect. They explain away unhealthy behavior. They convince themselves that patience will eventually change the other person. Instead of asking whether the relationship is healthy, they focus entirely on whether the other person is hurting. This creates friendships where one person always gives and the other always receives. It creates relationships where emotional energy flows in only one direction. The empath becomes the problem solver, the comforter, the encourager, and the emotional shelter, while quietly neglecting their own needs. Over time, this constant giving becomes emotionally exhausting. They begin feeling empty without understanding why. They mistake emotional exhaustion for personal failure and try even harder to help. This cycle repeats until repeated heartbreak finally reveals a painful truth. Helping someone should never require abandoning yourself. Caring deeply should never mean accepting endless disrespect. Love should never demand the complete loss of personal peace. These realizations are rarely accepted immediately because empaths genuinely want to believe the best in people. They hold on to hope long after others would have walked away. Yet life continues presenting similar situations until the lesson becomes impossible to ignore. Eventually, they realize compassion without wisdom invites unnecessary suffering. Real love includes honesty. Real kindness includes self-respect. Real generosity includes limits. The heart remains open, but the door is no longer left unlocked for everyone. And that lesson changes everything. Learning to say no becomes one of the hardest challenges an empath will ever face because it feels completely opposite to their natural instincts. For years, they measured their worth by how much they could give. They believed being available at every moment proved they were caring. They feared that refusing a request would make them selfish, uncaring, or unlovable. Even after recognizing unhealthy patterns, guilt often appears the moment they begin protecting themselves. A simple no can feel heavier than carrying someone else's problems for weeks. They worry about disappointing people. They fear being misunderstood. They wonder if setting boundaries will cause others to leave. These fears make perfect sense because many empaths have spent most of their lives believing peace is created by keeping everyone else happy. The difficult truth is that endless people-pleasing never creates lasting peace. It only delays conflict while increasing emotional exhaustion. At first, protecting personal space feels uncomfortable because it requires choosing self-respect over constant approval. Some people react with confusion. Others become angry because they benefited from the empath's lack of boundaries. Those reactions can make the empath question whether they are doing the right thing. Yet with each healthy boundary, something slowly changes inside. They discover they can care about others without carrying every burden. They learn that saying no to one request allows them to say yes to their own emotional well-being. They begin noticing which relationships survive healthy boundaries and which ones depended entirely on endless sacrifice. This new awareness becomes deeply freeing because it replaces guilt with clarity. They finally understand that protecting their peace is not an act of selfishness, but an act of emotional responsibility. A heart that is constantly empty cannot continue giving genuine love forever. By caring for themselves, they become capable of offering healthier, more balanced compassion to others. As they become stronger, something unexpected begins to happen. After years of carrying emotional weight that often felt impossible to understand, many empaths slowly begin noticing a quiet change within themselves. The same wounds that once seemed determined to break them start becoming the very reason they are able to understand people in ways few others can. Pain changes everyone, but it does not change everyone in the same direction. Some people become bitter because of what they have endured. Others become fearful and build walls so high that nobody can reach them again. Empaths often take a different path. Their suffering teaches them to recognize pain, hiding behind smiles, silence, anger, and even laughter. They stop judging people only by their actions, because experience has shown them that behavior is often the surface of a much deeper story. When someone reacts with frustration, an empath may notice exhaustion instead of anger. When someone pushes others away, they may recognize fear instead of rejection. When someone appears cold, they may quietly wonder what heartbreak taught that person to stop trusting. This ability does not come from reading books or listening to advice. It comes from surviving their own emotional storms. Every disappointment they once cried over becomes another piece of emotional wisdom. Every lonely night teaches them what loneliness truly feels like. Every betrayal teaches them how deeply broken trust can affect a person's heart. Because they have stood in those painful places themselves, they no longer rush to criticize people who are struggling. They know that many battles remain invisible. They understand that some people smile while quietly falling apart inside. This does not mean they excuse harmful behavior or allow themselves to be mistreated again. Instead, they develop the rare ability to separate the person from the pain that may be influencing that person's actions. Their compassion becomes wiser than it once was. It is no longer blind compassion that sacrifices everything for everyone. It becomes balanced compassion that offers kindness while still protecting personal peace. This transformation creates a strength that is difficult to describe because it is not loud or dramatic. It is the quiet strength that remains calm during chaos. It is the patience that listens before speaking. It is the resilience that refuses to give up our countless disappointments. Many people think strength always looks confident, powerful, or fearless. The strength developed by empaths often looks completely different. It appears in the ability to remain kind after experiencing cruelty. It appears in the decision to trust again after betrayal, although much more wisely than before. It appears in choosing hope after seasons filled with disappointment. This kind of resilience grows slowly through repeated hardship. Every challenge forces the empath to discover emotional abilities they never realized they possessed. They become more patient because healing taught them that lasting change cannot be rushed. They become more understanding because they remember how much they once needed someone to simply listen without judgment. They become emotionally steady because life repeatedly required them to find peace during uncertainty. Over time, something remarkable begins happening. People naturally feel safe around them. Friends begin sharing secrets they have never told anyone else. Strangers sometimes open their hearts after only a short conversation. Family members seek their advice during difficult moments. This happens because genuine emotional safety cannot be faked. People instinctively recognize someone who truly understands suffering. Empaths become sources of comfort, not because they always know the perfect words to say, but because their presence quietly communicates understanding. They know that healing often begins with feeling seen instead of being fixed. Sometimes the greatest comfort comes from sitting beside someone without trying to solve every problem. Sometimes the most powerful gift is allowing another person to cry without making them feel weak. These lessons are born from personal experience. The empath remembers what it felt like when nobody seemed to understand their own pain. They remember searching for someone who would simply believe them without minimizing their emotions. Those memories shape the way they treat others. Instead of offering quick solutions, they offer patience. Instead of rushing conversations, they create space. Instead of forcing hope too early, They allow people to move through healing at their own pace. What once felt like meaningless suffering slowly reveals an unexpected purpose. The scars remain, but they no longer exist only as reminders of pain. They become evidence of survival. They become proof that even the hardest experiences can create extraordinary emotional wisdom. Yet despite all this growth, one important lesson still remains unfinished. Many empaths continue giving away one thing they should never place entirely in someone else's hands. But one final lesson must come before they fully step into their purpose. For much of their lives, many empaths quietly search for acceptance without even realizing it. They believe that if they love enough, help enough, forgive enough, or sacrifice enough, they will finally earn the appreciation they have always wanted. They become experts at making others feel valued, while secretly wondering why they themselves never feel completely accepted. They often tie their self-worth to the happiness of the people around them. If everyone else is smiling, they feel successful. If someone is disappointed, they immediately assume they have done something wrong. This invisible habit follows them into friendships, relationships, workplaces, and even family life. They become people pleasers because keeping peace feels safer than risking rejection. They avoid difficult conversations because they fear losing people they care about. They constantly seek reassurance without realizing that no amount of reassurance ever feels permanent when self-acceptance is missing. Every compliment fades. Every approval eventually disappears. Every attempt to earn love leaves them needing more because they have built their confidence on something outside themselves. Then, life quietly begins creating another turning point. Sometimes it arrives through another heartbreak. Sometimes through disappointment. Sometimes through complete emotional exhaustion. Whatever form it takes, the lesson becomes impossible to ignore. No matter how much they give, they cannot control how other people choose to treat them. They cannot force respect. They cannot earn genuine love by abandoning themselves. They cannot build lasting happiness on constant approval from others. This realization is both painful and incredibly freeing. Instead of asking, "How can I make everyone accept me?" they begin asking a completely different question. Do I accept myself? That single change transforms everything. They stop apologizing for being sensitive. They stop hiding parts of their personality just to fit in. They become comfortable saying no without explaining themselves for hours afterward. They stop chasing people who repeatedly walk away. They recognize that relationships built on pretending can never provide real connection. As self-acceptance grows, inner peace slowly replaces constant self-doubt. They no longer feel responsible for fixing every emotional problem they encounter. They understand that compassion does not require carrying everyone else's burdens. This new confidence quietly changes every decision they make. They choose friendships where kindness flows both ways. They seek opportunities that align with their values instead of simply pleasing others. They stop measuring success by how many people approve of them and begin measuring it by whether they remain true to themselves. Their emotional energy becomes focused instead of scattered. Their heart becomes peaceful instead of constantly searching for permission to exist exactly as it is, and only then does the deeper purpose begin to reveal itself. When many people hear the word purpose, they immediately think about careers, achievements, or public success. For an empath, purpose often unfolds in a very different way. It is not always connected to fame, recognition, or a specific job title. Instead, it reveals itself through the quiet influence they have on the lives of others. Their purpose lives inside the conversations that restore hope, the encouragement that arrives at exactly the right moment, the understanding they offer without judgment, and the calm they bring into situations filled with fear or confusion. Everything they once believed was only suffering begins fitting together like pieces of a much larger picture. The loneliness taught them how to recognize isolation in others. Betrayal taught them the value of honesty. Rejection taught them to welcome people who feel left out. Heartbreak taught them how to comfort broken hearts without empty promises. Every difficult chapter became preparation rather than punishment. Their compassion is no longer simply a personality trait. It becomes one of the greatest gifts they can offer the world. Their emotional wisdom helps people feel understood when they believed nobody could understand them. Their resilience quietly inspires others to keep moving forward during painful seasons. Their patience creates safe spaces where healing becomes possible. Many never realize the full impact they have because the greatest influence is often invisible. A single conversation may change someone's life without the empath ever knowing it. A simple act of kindness may restore hope to a person standing at their lowest point. Their purpose is found not only in what they achieve, but in who they become through everything they survive. The journey that once seemed filled only with pain slowly reveals a meaning that could never have been understood at the beginning. Every hardship prepared them to carry light into places they once believed would remain dark forever, and every step through that difficult path shaped the person they were always meant to become. If there is one truth to remember from this journey, it is that the difficult road many empaths travel is not always a sign that life is working against them. In many cases, it is the path that slowly shapes their greatest strengths. Every disappointment teaches wisdom. Every heartbreak builds resilience. Every lonely season creates a deeper understanding of others. The experiences that once felt unfair often become the very foundation of compassion, patience, and quiet courage. None of those painful moments were easy, and none of them should be ignored. But they also do not have to become the final chapter of your story. Pain may leave scars, but it does not have the power to decide who you become. The choices you make after the pain are what shape your future. Every lesson you have learned, every obstacle you have survived, and every time you found the strength to keep moving forward has been preparing you for a life with greater purpose than you may realize today. Sometimes the fire that nearly broke you becomes the light that helps someone else find their way. Those words carry a powerful reminder. Your greatest struggles may one day become the reason another person finds hope, healing, or the courage to keep going. The kindness you offer, the understanding you share, and the compassion you have developed through your own experiences could change someone's life in ways you may never fully know. As this video comes to an end, take a quiet moment to think about your own journey. Which difficult experiences have made you stronger? Which painful chapters have taught you lessons you could not have learned any other way? Perhaps the parts of your story that you once wished had never happened are the very parts that shape the person you are becoming today. If this message spoke to your heart, let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear about the lessons that have shaped your life, or whether you recognize these empath traits in yourself. Your story may inspire someone else who is reading through the comments and silently searching for hope. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who may need this message today. By joining our community, you'll never miss future videos exploring empathy, emotional growth, hidden truths about human nature, and the deeper meaning behind life's greatest challenges. Thank you for watching, for spending this time with us. And until our next video, keep protecting your peace, keep trusting your journey, and never forget that even the hardest path can lead to the most meaningful destination.